Welcome to Champion Stories. If this is your first time here, subscribe now and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. And now, on to today's story. The jeepney's engine coughed to a halt on the dusty road leading to Kibawe, Bukidnon. Manny Pacquiao stepped down from the colorful public transport, his designer sneakers meeting the same red earth that had stained his bare feet as a child. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the rural landscape, painting everything in warm, golden hues that seemed to whisper of memories long buried. He had not planned this visit. 3 days earlier, while reviewing training footage in his Los Angeles mansion, something had stirred deep within his chest, an inexplicable pull toward home that grew stronger with each passing hour. His wife, Jinky, had noticed his restlessness, the way he stared out windows with distant eyes, but she knew better than to question these moments when the past called to him. The walk from the main road to his mother's neighborhood felt both eternal and instantaneous. Each step carried the weight of decades, each familiar landmark triggering a cascade of emotions he had learned to suppress in the boxing ring. The old Sari Sari store where he once begged for rice still stood, though its tin roof had rusted further and the wooden walls bore fresh coats of faded blue paint. Children playing barefoot in the dirt stopped their games to stare at the approaching figure. Some recognized him immediately, their eyes widening with the kind of wonder reserved for mythical beings made flesh. Others simply saw a well-dressed stranger, whose presence seemed to command the very air around him. Manny acknowledged them with gentle nods, remembering his own childhood fascination with visitors who carried themselves differently, who smelled of places beyond their small world. As he rounded the familiar corner, his mother's house came into view. The sight hit him like a physical blow, stopping him mid-stride. His breathing became shallow, irregular. The modest wooden structure seemed smaller than his memories had preserved it, more fragile, yet simultaneously more powerful than any arena he had ever entered. The house stood exactly as he remembered from his teenage years, when he had last lived there before leaving to pursue his boxing dreams in Manila. The corrugated metal roof bore the same patches his father Rosalio had installed before his death. The front porch, where his mother Dionysia had spent countless evenings teaching him values that would later guide him through fame and fortune, sagged slightly under the weight of years and weather. But it was not the physical deterioration that brought tears to his eyes. It was the flood of memories that came rushing back. Memories of a secret he had carried for over 25 years, a burden that had shaped every decision, every victory, every moment of generosity in his public life. His hands trembled as he approached the front steps. The wooden planks creaked under his weight with the same musical protest they had offered decades ago. Through the small window, he could see movement inside, his mother's silhouette moving about her daily routines, unaware that her son stood mere feet away, wrestling with ghosts only he could see. The elderly woman next door, whom everyone called Tita Remedios, emerged from her own house with a basin of laundry. Her weathered face transformed into a mixture of shock and joy upon recognizing the visitor. She set down her basin carefully, as if sudden movements might cause this vision to disappear. Manny's chest tightened further. This was the woman who had witnessed everything. She knew the truth that he had buried so deep that sometimes he wondered if it had been real at all. Her knowing eyes met his across the narrow space between houses, and in that silent exchange, 25 years of carefully constructed public image began to crack. Manny remained frozen on the porch steps, his chest rising and falling in uneven rhythms. The wooden door before him represented more than just an entrance to his childhood home. It was a gateway to a past he had spent decades trying to reconcile. His knuckles, scarred from countless battles in rings around the world, hovered inches from the weathered surface, unable to complete the simple act of knocking. From inside came the familiar sounds of his mother's evening routine, the gentle clatter of ceramic dishes, the soft shuffle of house slippers against bamboo flooring, the distant hum of a radio playing old Filipino ballads. These ordinary sounds, which had once provided the soundtrack to his youth, now felt like echoes from another lifetime. Tita Remedios approached slowly from her yard, her bare feet making no sound on the packed earth. She had aged considerably since Manny's last visit, her hair now completely white, her shoulders more stooped, but her eyes retained the sharp intelligence that had made her the unofficial keeper of neighborhood secrets for over 4 decades. She stopped at the base of the steps, looking up at him with an expression that mixed maternal concern with something deeper, a recognition of shared burden. The old woman's presence brought back a specific memory that Manny had tried to suppress. A humid evening in 1998 when he was 17, broke and desperate. He had returned to this very house after his first professional loss, his face swollen beyond recognition, his dreams seemingly shattered. That night, something had happened, something that only Tita Remedios had witnessed, something that had changed the trajectory of his entire life. Inside the house, Dionysia's movements suddenly stopped. Mothers possess an inexplicable intuition about their children's presence, and despite the years and distance that often separated them, she could sense when her son was near. The radio's volume decreased, replaced by an expectant silence that seemed to pulse through the thin walls. Manny's hand finally found the doorframe, his fingers tracing the same grooves he had memorized as a child during countless hours spent sitting in this exact spot, dreaming of a life beyond their circumstances. The wood felt different under his touch, softer, more worn, as if the house itself had aged in sympathy with its inhabitants. The secret he carried wasn't about money stolen or trust betrayed. It was something far more complex, something that had driven every charitable act, every gesture of humility, every moment when he had chosen to give rather than take. That night in 1998, in his darkest hour, his mother had made a sacrifice so profound that it had haunted him through every victory, every championship belt, every standing ovation. She had sold her only valuable possession, a small gold ring that had belonged to her own mother, to pay for his bus fare to Manila and one more chance at a boxing career. But what made it unbearable was not just the sacrifice itself, but the fact that she had done it while believing he was asleep, whispering prayers over the money in the darkness, asking God to protect her son's dreams, even if it meant her own comfort would disappear forever. Manny had heard every word, felt every tear that had fallen onto the crumpled bills, and had made a silent vow that moment to never let her know he had witnessed her private anguish. For 25 years, he had carried this knowledge alone, building his charitable empire on the foundation of that single act of maternal love, never able to explain to anyone why giving felt less like generosity and more like penance. The door opened before he could knock. Dionysia appeared in the doorway, her aged face transforming from surprise to pure joy in the span of a heartbeat. Her small frame seemed to grow larger in her happiness, her arms already extending toward the son, who had traveled thousands of miles, but somehow never felt far enough from this moment of reckoning. The embrace between mother and son lasted longer than any championship celebration Manny had ever experienced. Dionysia's small arms wrapped around his waist with a strength that defied her 73 years, while his own powerful hands that had delivered knockout punches to world champions, trembled as they gently held her fragile shoulders. The familiar scent of sampaguita flowers and traditional Filipino cooking that clung to her simple dress transported him instantly back to childhood, when her hugs could heal any wound and her presence could chase away any fear. Dionysia's weathered hands moved to frame his face, her calloused fingers tracing the lines that fame and countless battles had etched around his eyes. She studied him with the intensity of a mother who had watched her son grow from a malnourished boy selling cigarettes on street corners to a global icon, yet somehow still saw only her child who needed protection from the world's cruelties. Behind them, Tita Remedios had quietly retreated to her own porch, understanding that this moment required privacy. Her knowing glance lingered on Manny's face before she disappeared inside her house, carrying with her the weight of secrets that bind communities together across decades. The late afternoon sun continued its descent, casting longer shadows across the small yard where chickens pecked at scattered grains of rice. As they moved inside the modest house, Manny's eyes swept across the familiar surroundings with new perspective. The same wooden furniture occupied the same positions, though everything appeared smaller and more worn than his memories had preserved. The walls displayed a collection of newspaper clippings chronicling his career, victories, defeats, comebacks, and triumphs, creating a paper monument to dreams that had somehow materialized despite impossible odds. But his gaze was drawn inexorably to a small shelf near the window where his mother kept her most precious possessions. There, among faded photographs and religious icons, sat an empty space where a small jewelry box had once rested. The absence of that box sent a fresh wave of emotion through his chest. a physical reminder of the sacrifice that had launched his journey to greatness. Dionysia busied herself preparing merienda, moving through her tiny kitchen with practiced efficiency despite her excitement. She arranged simple kakanin on a plate, poured fresh buko juice into mismatched glasses, and hummed softly, the same melody she had sung while cooking during his childhood. Her actions carried the automatic grace of a woman who had spent her life caring for others, finding joy in service even when resources were scarce. Manny settled onto the familiar wooden bench, where he had spent countless hours as a teenager, plotting his escape from poverty through boxing. The bench creaked under his weight with the same musical protest it had offered years ago, but now the sound felt like a greeting from an old friend, rather than a reminder of their family's limited means. The afternoon light filtering through the small windows created patterns on the floor that matched his childhood memories perfectly. In those patterns, he could almost see himself at 17, thin, desperate, and burning with ambition that felt too large for his small body to contain. That version of himself had sat in this exact spot the night before his mother's secret sacrifice, believing his dreams were already dead. His mother appeared beside him with the prepared snacks, her movements careful and deliberate. She had aged visibly since his last visit 2 years prior, her hair whiter, her steps more measured, but her eyes retained the same fierce love that had sustained their family through the darkest times. As she arranged the food before him, Manny noticed her hands that had worked countless jobs to keep their family fed, hands that had counted and recounted precious pesos, hands that had once held her mother's ring while making the decision that would change everything. The weight of unspoken gratitude pressed against his chest like a physical force. 25 years of success, of giving back to communities, of charitable foundations and generous gestures, all of it had been his attempt to repay a debt that could never truly be settled. The kakanin sat untouched on the plate before Manny, as memories flooded through him with relentless intensity. Every detail of the small house seemed to pulse with significance. The way afternoon light fell across the bamboo flooring in the same geometric patterns he had memorized during sleepless nights. The persistent hum of the old electric fan that had provided their only relief from sweltering heat. The faint squeak of the wooden chair where his mother now sat, watching him with eyes that held decades of unspoken love and worry. His gaze drifted to the corner where his old sleeping mat had once been spread each evening. That spot now held a small television set, its screen dark but reflecting the window's light like a mirror to the past. On that very space, he had pretended to sleep on the night that changed everything, controlling his breathing to maintain the illusion of unconsciousness while his mother moved through the house with careful, quiet steps. Dionysia noticed his distant expression and misinterpreted it as fatigue from travel. She rose from her chair with the kind of maternal instinct that recognizes a child's needs before they are voiced, moving to adjust the fan's direction so the breeze would reach him more directly. Her concern was evident in every gesture, the same protective attention she had showered on him during his childhood illnesses, his teenage disappointments, his early boxing defeats. The irony was not lost on him that she continued to care for his comfort while remaining unaware of how profoundly her own sacrifice had shaped his entire worldview. Every charitable foundation he had established, every scholarship program he had funded, every time he had given away money to struggling families, all of it traced back to that single moment when he had watched her count and recount the money from selling her mother's ring, her tears falling silently in the darkness. Through the open window, the sounds of neighborhood life continued their familiar rhythm. Children's laughter mixed with the distant call of a vendor selling halo halo, while roosters crowed despite the approaching evening. These sounds had formed the soundtrack of his youth, when their small house had felt like the entire universe, and poverty had been not just a condition, but an identity that seemed impossible to escape. Manny's hands unconsciously moved to his pockets, where he carried more cash than his family had seen in their first 17 years of his life combined. The contrast felt surreal, sitting in the same poverty where his dreams had been born, now possessing the means to solve every financial problem his younger self had ever imagined, yet still unable to address the emotional debt that grew heavier with each passing year. His mother returned to her seat, her movements slower now as the excitement of his unexpected visit gave way to the simple pleasure of his presence. She picked up a small piece of needlework from a basket beside her chair, a pillowcase she was embroidering with delicate flowers, the kind of patient Igor's intricate work that had helped supplement their meager income during his childhood. Her fingers, though more arthritic now, still moved with practiced precision across the fabric. Watching her work brought back another wave of memory from that pivotal night in 1998. After conducting her secretive transaction with the ring, she had sat in this very chair, working on a similar piece of embroidery to calm her nerves. He had observed her through nearly closed eyes, noting how her hands shook slightly as she struggled to maintain normal routines while processing the magnitude of what she had just done for his future. The needle in her hands now caught the fading sunlight, creating small flashes of silver that seemed to punctuate the silence between them. Each stitch represented the same patient hope that had characterized her entire approach to motherhood, the belief that small, consistent acts of love could somehow accumulate into something powerful enough to change a child's destiny. Outside, Tita Remedios emerged briefly to water her small garden, her movements deliberate and knowing. She glanced toward Dionysia's house just once, a look that carried the weight of shared history and unspoken understanding. Then she retreated inside, leaving mother and son alone with their individual burdens of love unexpressed and sacrifice unacknowledged. As evening approached, the familiar call to prayer from the nearby mosque blended with church bells in the distance, creating the religious symphony that had marked time in his childhood. Manny closed his eyes and allowed the sounds to wash over him, each note carrying him deeper into memories he had carefully locked away for decades. The needle continued its rhythmic journey through fabric in his mother's steady hands, but his mind transported him back to that crushing night in 1998, when defeat had felt absolute. He had returned home with a swollen face and empty pockets, his first professional loss having shattered not just his confidence, but his family's fragile hope for financial salvation. The local promoters had dismissed him as too small, too weak, lacking the killer instinct necessary for success in the brutal world of professional boxing. That evening, he had collapsed onto his sleeping mat in this very room, his body aching from physical punishment and his spirit broken by the realization that their sacrifice had been for nothing. His mother had believed he was sleeping deeply, exhausted by travel and disappointment, when she began her quiet preparations for what she thought would be his final attempt at a boxing career. He remembered the soft shuffle of her feet across the bamboo floor, the gentle creak of the wooden chest where she kept their family's few valuable possessions. Through barely opened eyes, he had watched her retrieve the small jewelry box that contained her mother's ring, a delicate band of gold with a tiny pearl that had been passed down through generations of women who had known hardship but never surrendered hope. The ring represented more than monetary value. It was their family's connection to better times, to ancestors who had owned beautiful things, to the possibility that poverty was not their permanent destiny. His grandmother had worn it during her wedding ceremony in 1945, had clutched it during prayers for her children's future, had refused to sell it even during their darkest economic struggles. Manny had watched his mother hold the ring up to catch moonlight streaming through their window, her lips moving in silent prayer as she asked for guidance. She had stood there for what felt like hours, weighing the ring's sentimental value against her son's dreams, understanding that this decision would either launch his career or mark the end of their family's most precious heirloom. When she finally slipped out of the house near midnight, he had wanted to call out to her, to tell her that boxing was not worth such a sacrifice, that he would find another way to support their family. But something deeper than pride had kept him silent, perhaps the recognition that refusing her gift would diminish the love that motivated it, that accepting her sacrifice was itself an act of honor. The memory of her return haunted him still. She had placed the money carefully in an envelope, her tears falling silently as she whispered prayers over the crumpled bills. She had asked God to multiply her sacrifice, to transform her pain into her son's triumph, to make worthy the price she had paid for his dreams. Now, 25 years later, those prayers had been answered beyond her wildest imagination. Yet the weight of that answered prayer felt heavier than any championship belt he had ever worn, because success had only magnified the enormity of what she had given up for him. The embroidery needle paused in Dionysia's weathered fingers as she noticed her son's unusually quiet demeanor. Throughout his career, she had learned to read the subtle signs of his internal struggles, the way his shoulders carried tension after difficult fights, the distant look in his eyes when media obligations overwhelmed him, the slight tremor in his hands when discussing his childhood. Tonight, something deeper was troubling him, something that reached beyond the typical pressures of fame and responsibility. Manny's gaze moved around the small room, cataloging changes and constants with the precision of someone trying to memorize details before they disappeared forever. The walls still bore the same water stains from monsoon seasons past. The floorboards still creaked in the same familiar patterns, but new additions told stories of his success. A small refrigerator hummed quietly in the corner, a gift from his first major purse that had seemed like a miracle when it arrived. Electric outlets now dotted the walls, where candles had once provided the only evening light. These improvements, modest by any standard, represented transformations that his 17-year-old self could never have imagined. Yet each upgrade also served as a reminder of how far they had traveled from those desperate days when selling a family heirloom had seemed like their only remaining option. The contrast between their current comfort and past desperation should have brought him satisfaction, but instead it amplified his sense of emotional debt. His mother set aside her needlework and moved to the small altar that occupied a corner of the main room. The wooden shrine, adorned with pictures of saints and family members, had been a constant presence throughout his childhood. She lit a candle with the same reverent movements she had performed thousands of times before, her lips moving in silent prayer as she had done on that crucial night 25 years ago. The flickering candlelight cast dancing shadows across the room, creating an atmosphere that seemed to dissolve the barriers between past and present. In those shifting patterns of light and darkness, Manny could almost see his younger self again, hungry, determined and blissfully unaware of the price his mother was willing to pay for his dreams. Outside, the neighborhood settled into evening routines. The sounds of families gathering for dinner drifted through open windows, children being called inside for baths, televisions tuning to evening news programs. These ordinary sounds of community life provided a soundtrack that had remained unchanged despite the dramatic transformation of one local boy's destiny. Manny's hands unconsciously moved to his chest, where he could feel his heart beating with the irregular rhythm that had become familiar whenever he thought about that night. Every charitable act he had performed since achieving success had been motivated by the need to somehow repay what felt like an impossible debt. He had built schools, funded medical clinics, provided scholarships, and distributed millions in direct aid to struggling families, yet none of it had diminished the weight of what his mother had sacrificed. The irony was profound. His mother's secret gift had generated not just his boxing career, but an entire philosophy of giving that had touched thousands of lives. Her single act of sacrifice had multiplied exponentially, creating ripples of generosity that spread far beyond their small community. Yet she remained unaware of her role as the inspiration for his philanthropic legacy, just as she remained unaware that her secret transaction had never actually been secret at all. The candle on the altar burned steadily, its flame unwavering despite the gentle breeze from the electric fan. In that steady light, Manny saw a reflection of his mother's faith, constant, resilient, and capable of illuminating even the darkest circumstances with hope. The evening call to prayer from the mosque had faded, replaced by the gentle chorus of crickets and the distant laughter of children playing their final games before bedtime. Manny watched his mother's silhouette against the candlelight, her small frame casting a shadow that seemed much larger than her physical presence. In that shadow, he saw the outline of every sacrifice she had made, every prayer she had whispered in darkness, every moment she had chosen his dreams over her own comfort. Dionysia moved from the altar to a wooden chest near the window, the same chest where she had once stored her most precious possessions. Her movements were slower now, more deliberate, as age had settled into her bones like an unwelcome but familiar guest. She opened the chest with the same careful attention she had always given to her treasures, her weathered hands sorting through layers of fabric and paper. From within the chest, she withdrew a manila envelope, yellowed with age and soft from repeated handling. Manny's breath caught in his throat as he recognized it, the same envelope in which she had placed the money from selling her mother's ring 25 years ago. His heart hammered against his ribs as she approached him, her expression mixing pride with something that looked remarkably like nervous anticipation. She held the envelope toward him with hands that trembled slightly, not from age but from emotion. Inside that envelope, Manny knew, were newspaper clippings from every major fight of his career, ticket stubs from matches she had attended, photographs from award ceremonies, and letters from grateful recipients of his charitable foundations. She had been collecting evidence of his success for decades, creating a physical monument to the dreams that her sacrifice had made possible. But there was something else in her expression, something that made Manny's stomach clench with sudden realization. Her eyes held the same knowing look he had seen in Tita Remedios' face earlier that afternoon, the expression of someone who possessed a secret they had carried for far too long. The possibility that she had known about his awareness all along crashed over him like a physical blow. As she settled beside him on the worn wooden bench, the envelope resting between them like a bridge across 25 years of unspoken truth, Manny understood that this moment had been inevitable from the day he first stepped into a professional boxing ring. Every victory, every championship, every act of generosity had been leading back to this small room where his dreams had been born and nurtured through sacrificial love. The weight of mutual unspoken knowledge hung heavy in the air between them. Both had carried their secret versions of that crucial night. He with his burden of gratitude and debt, she perhaps with her own complex emotions about a gift given in desperation, but received with such profound consequences. The space between them seemed to pulse with all the words they had never said, all the acknowledgements they had never made. Outside, Tita Remedios appeared briefly at her window, her silhouette visible against the warm light of her kitchen. Her presence felt like that of a guardian, watching over a long-awaited reckoning, a witness to the completion of a story that had begun on a desperate night when love had been transformed into hope, and hope had somehow become reality. The manila envelope remained unopened between them, but its contents were less important than what it represented. Evidence that some sacrifices are so profound they can only be honored by living a life worthy of them. After 25 years of success built on a foundation of secret sacrifice, mother and son sat in the gathering darkness, finally ready to confront the truth that had shaped both their lives in ways neither had ever fully acknowledged. The manila envelope remained untouched as something more powerful than words passed between mother and son. In the flickering candlelight, 25 years of carefully maintained pretense began to dissolve like morning mist before the sun. Manny's eyes met his mother's gaze, and in that silent exchange, he saw confirmation of what his heart had suspected. She had known all along that he was awake that night. Dionysia's weathered hand moved slowly to cover his, her touch carrying the weight of decades spent watching her sacrifice transform into something neither of them could have imagined. Her fingers, still bearing the calluses of a lifetime of hard work, traced gentle patterns across his knuckles, as she had done when he was a child, seeking comfort after neighborhood fights or childhood disappointments. The realization that she had been aware of his consciousness during her secret transaction recontextualized everything. Her tears that night had not been shed in private solitude, but in the knowledge that her son was witnessing her greatest act of maternal love. She had allowed him to see her sacrifice not as a burden for him to carry, but as a gift for him to understand, the depth of a mother's faith in her child's potential. Through the open window, the evening breeze carried the scent of sampaguita flowers and the distant aroma of rice cooking in neighboring houses. These familiar smells of home wrapped around them like an embrace, creating a cocoon of intimacy in which truth could finally breathe freely. The sounds of community life continued their eternal rhythm outside, but inside this small room, time seemed suspended between past sacrifice and present understanding. Manny's chest tightened with a different kind of emotion now, not the crushing weight of secret debt, but the profound recognition of a love so pure it had shaped the trajectory of thousands of lives. Every scholarship he had funded, every family he had helped, every charitable foundation he had established, had been an unconscious attempt to multiply his mother's single act of faith into a legacy worthy of her sacrifice. The candle on the altar flickered as if responding to the shift in emotional atmosphere, its light dancing across the photographs of saints and family members who had watched over their journey from poverty to prominence. In that sacred space, surrounded by symbols of faith and endurance, mother and son finally acknowledged the truth that had connected them across decades of success and separation. Dionysia's other hand moved to the envelope, but instead of opening it, she gently pushed it toward him. The gesture was clear. These documented achievements belonged to him, but they also belonged to both of them, representing the fulfillment of dreams that had been born from her willingness to sacrifice everything for his potential. As full darkness settled over the neighborhood and the sounds of evening prayers drifted from nearby houses, Manny understood that some debts can only be repaid through living a life of purpose. His mother's sacrifice had not created an obligation, but an opportunity, the chance to prove that love, when invested with complete faith, can indeed transform the world. The envelope lay between them, no longer a barrier of unspoken truth, but a bridge connecting sacrifice to fulfillment, love to legacy, a mother's desperate hope to a son's grateful purpose. In the gentle silence of that moment, surrounded by the artifacts of their shared journey, they both understood that the greatest victories are often achieved not in public arenas, but in the quiet spaces where love dares to believe in impossible dreams. Thank you for watching another episode of Champion Stories. If you enjoyed today's story, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming inspiring tales about Manny Pacquiao. Share your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one, and many times your ideas inspire our next episode. See you next time.